Hey everyone, Tim here from FlipSpark. Today I'll be walking you through how the FlipSpark music production card deck works and show you how you can use it in your studio to help you find your signature sound. FlipSpark is less of a game and more of a creative tool. It can help you find inspiration if you're stuck for ideas and want to mix things up. Often when you start a track you get a blank slate with infinite options, and this can be quite daunting. This gives you some creative boundaries to make new connections and try new things. This FlipSpark card deck is still in development, and I'm hoping to use this video to get some public feedback on the concept, good or bad. Please leave a comment on the YouTube video with your thoughts if you think this might interest you or maybe someone you know. Okay, let's get into it. Start by splitting the deck into its 4 suits and give them a shuffle. So firstly we have a suit for your song elements. You can think of these as your layers or channels in your song, such as your drums, bass, melody, chords, and that sort of thing. Then we have instrument cards, or the sound source you'll use to make that element. Then we have pattern cards to give you some ideas for what kind of pattern or melody to make. And finally, creative effects to help make that element stand out. So imagine you're starting your song out from scratch with a blank slate, and the idea here is that we'll draw cards to define the first few elements to make and how to make them. So let's see what we get. We'll start with the element card. Bass. Okay, cool. We all know what bass is. Each card comes with a title and a small description of what that means. So bass, the low end driving energy of your harmony and song. Okay, cool. So what will we use to make our bass? Let's have a look. We'll go to the instrument card. Melodic sample. Use a melodic sample from a sample pack. So that's interesting for me because normally I'd reach for a synth, but in this case it's telling me to go through my sample packs, find a unique sample or a cool sample, and use that instead to make the bass line. Now you'll notice here the instrument cards and the pattern cards are split between black and white. This is because there's an obvious split between the tools and methods to make either melodic or drum elements. So what you do is you turn the card so the top half matches the element card you're working with. Also, it's not shown here on this prototype, but I will be adding numbers to the instrument cards, so you could instead choose to use one of your favorite synths or plugins from a list of your own gear. Okay, cool, so we have bass made using a melodic sample. What will we do for the pattern? Paired melodies. Pick another melodic element and match the rhythm, optionally use different notes. Okay, so what we're talking about here is taking the bassline melody and having it match, say, your lead or your chords, match the rhythm, and potentially change a few notes to keep it interesting. Okay, and what about creative effects? Amp it. Drive it through a guitar amp or amp plugin to obviously give it some distortion and give your bassline more character. Cool, so that's one element that we can make in our song. Element. Character drums, a drum layer that adds groove and texture to your core drums. So there's a card in here called core drums, which is talking about your kick and your hat and your snare and clap. This is your character drums, which is a layer that would sit underneath that to give it groove or texture or more character. And you can see it's black because it's drums. So we'll get the instrument card. What will we use to make the character drums? Foley. Use or layer in Foley with the drums. So Foley is real world recordings, perhaps something around your house, pots and tins. Layer that in with your drums to give them a unique sound that no one else has got. Pattern. Do it live. Record a part with no quantization and stick with it. Okay, cool, so that's interesting for me because I'm terrible at this, but in this case the idea is you take one element of your character drums, record it in with your keyboard or your drum pad, and don't quantize it. Stick with it to give it a bit of an interesting groove. Hopefully a good one. Creative effects. Glitch it. Use a glitch looping tool or plugin, or go crazy with recording, warping, and editing. Okay, so that's suggesting we make our drums, perhaps we record it as a audio loop, and then chop it up, rearrange it, whatever, to make it interesting. Okay, that's cool for character drums. Let's just do one more for good measure. Elements, motif, a secondary melodic instrumental element that supports your lead melody. Okay, so usually you'd have your melody in your song, and you might have something in the background that's musical and supports it, usually a lot more sparse. So that's what that's talking about. What will we use to make that? The newbie. Use the most recent melodic instrument you purchased or downloaded. So that could be a new plugin you've bought, a new piece of hardware you bought, a new synth, could be something free you've downloaded. Use that to make the motif. That's cool because it means we're using the gear we're buying and not resorting to the same old tricks. Pattern. Borrow it. Find and modify a MIDI pattern from your library as the basis of your melody. Okay, so for making this motif, I'd dig through my library, find a MIDI clip that worked, bring it in, maybe I'd match the key, and then pull out a few notes, mess around with it a little bit to make it my own, and that way we're building it from a MIDI clip that we've found, that we've borrowed. And lastly, Creative Effects, shimmer it. Use either a tremolo or rotary plugin to apply a rapid LFO to the volume, panning, or filter. Just to give it a bit of a shimmer, I'll probably pair that with some reverb to have it sit in the background, but that gives me an interesting idea for my motif, and drums and bass. So there you have it. There are a few different ways of using the deck, and I don't want to go through all the cards in this video, but you should get the idea. It's about drawing cards, coming up with new combinations for making parts in your song. So that's it for the demo. Please drop a comment on the video with your thoughts so I can read through them and see what people think. If there's interest, it wouldn't take long to push the button and go to print and go to market. At the same time, if the feedback is harsh, it's not a big deal to pull the plug either. It's no big loss. Just let me know. That's it from me. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.